If you come in to work for Ford now, you can make more at McDonald's or White Castle.
We're on the verge of one of the biggest strikes of the year.
They want you to accept that they make billions in profits, that the leaders make millions in salaries, and we continue to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right now, the United Auto Workers are negotiating a new contract with 3 of the country's top car companies. And negotiations are looking a lot different than they have in years past.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do with their proposal. I'm going to file it in its proper place.
In an industry where jobs have been getting worse and worse over the years, this contract could be a historic win for 150,000 workers. Or it could be another victory for large corporations over the disappearing middle class. We sat down with workers to get the real story of what they're fighting for and how far they're willing to go to get it. For a long time, a job in the largely union auto industry meant good wages and stability. But that's not really the case anymore.
You can't afford nothing, you're working nonstop and you still can't afford it, and you're at one of the jobs that was supposed to be the good job. You're supposed to be standard setting job, but you can barely make ends meet. A lot of people have had to secure second jobs or part-time work that they could go do.
Part of it is that wages haven't kept up with the cost of living. When adjusting for inflation, workers who are hired now make $10 an hour less than they did in 2007. This never used to be a problem because the UAW contract included COLA, or cost of living adjustments.
His grandfather and my father and the older members enjoyed a cost of living raise since the 1950s. So when we talk about rebuilding the middle class, COLA is an important step to do that.
COLA is essentially a raise that matches inflation. So if inflation is 4%, your salary goes up 4%. GM workers won COLA all the way back in 1948, and in the 1970s, the UAW won it for all members. But when the auto industry collapsed in 2008, the UAW sacrificed these benefits so the car companies could recover.
They came to us for the bailout. We suspended our cost of living in 2007. We were promised that after we helped the companies achieve success, that cost of living would be reinstated. Several contracts after, we're still at the situation where our cost of living was never brought back, so we all feel lied to in that regard.
The big 3 have more than recovered. Ford, Stellantis, and GM made a combined $20 billion in profits in just the first 6 months of this year.
Their wages have been returned. Their profits have been returned. When you see the bonuses and you see the CEO pay, all those things were returned. So did I make the sacrifices so Ford can continue to hire people at $16 an hour and not return our COLA? I would have struck then.
COLA was not the only benefit lost during the Great Recession. Workers hired before 2009 had pensions, healthcare when they retired, and reached their top wage within 3 years. But workers like Chris, who were hired after the economic crash, didn't get any of that.
So this is like the body shop right here. We stamp all the parts, the hoods, the fenders, all that. I'm a quality inspector, and that's where I park every single day. It took me 9.5 years to get to top pay. And not to mention going through 4 different plants in 2 different states. Even though I'm at parity in wages right now, I have no guarantee money coming in from a pension, and I have no health care when I retire. That's, guaranteed like everyone else.
The UAW is fighting to get rid of this tiered system, in which workers doing the same job sometimes have different pay and benefits.
It is hurtful to sit next to people and make less than they do and work just as hard as they do, no matter what industry and what you're doing.
It really puts a wedge between workers on the floor, and it hurts our union. And it's hurt our union for the last, 15 years. Ending tiers brings us back to a fighting labor movement.
Right now, the majority of Big 3 workers are considered lower tier workers like Chris.
If I'm going to continue to be a part of this workforce, that's making the companies record profits. I'd really like to be able to retire with some dignity, pension and some health care, so I don't have to struggle when I'm, 65, 70 years old.
There are still others who work full-time, but don't even get the benefits of lower-tier workers.
I've been working 7 days because I have to, not because I want to, you know what I mean? And I don't think I should have to work 7 days to keep me and my family afloat.
Charles is what's known as a supplemental worker, which is supposed to be a temporary replacement for a full-time worker who's out on leave. But that's not what the companies are doing.
We have no four-timers. We are the four-timers. They shouldn't be hiring supplementals to circumvent getting four-timers, but that's what it seems like is happening.
By abusing the temp worker category, the companies get away with paying lower hourly wages, offering less health care, and giving no retirement benefits, all while demanding the same amount of work from these employees.
We were under the impression that it would only be for a short time. Because when they first started this facility, it was supposed to have been a 6-month trial, and if it was successful, we were supposed to become four-timers. Well, that didn't happen. The only hope we have is within this new contract, if we can get it through this new contract. Other than that, I believe they're going to keep trying to keep us as supplemental.
The Big Three and the UAW have until September 14th to come to an agreement on a new contract. If they can't, we might see the largest strike in the industry in 50 years.
We've got 25 days to the deadline. So I got a question for you. Are you ready to rumble?
Things aren't going to be given to us or bestowed upon us by benevolent corporations or politicians, right? We are the ones who can affect change.
No one knows what's going to come out of this negotiation, but we know that these people are going to fight. They're trying it a different way. They're trying different methods that are really going to change the future of how a union fights, of how this country lasts. If we win big on this contract, it's history setting.
The UAW has a new president who has taken a much more aggressive stance in bargaining. Shawn Fain broke tradition when he started negotiations by shaking members' hands instead of company executives.
We'll shake hands when they give our workers their fair share. When our workers have economic justice, then we'll shake hands. But until then, there's no point in having some pomp and circumstance and some big ceremony acting like we're working together when we're not.
And the tone of bargaining suggests the UAW is not willing to back down on the big issues.
I'm very, very encouraged, inspired that the UAW is getting back to its roots of a progressive fighting union, right? Because that's what I remember. A progressive fighting union.
The UAW used to set the standard. Unions used to set the standard, not so much anymore, and we got to bring that back.
The question now is if this new momentum will deliver a record-setting contract for workers.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more stories like this one, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have any ideas for stories that you would like for us to investigate, just drop them in the comments below.